Flashing away. We are live in the shed. Hey, welcome. Sorry, it's all a bit of a mess. Welcome to the Relove Guitars workshop. This is Sam wearing the head-mounted camera, speaking to you on this device here. Still got some battery life. Yep. And the reason for this video is to introduce you to this beautiful creature here that goes by the name of the Squier Stratocaster Korean style. And there's no doubt about this. If you're a sucker for Milky Bar coloured guitars like I am, with a bit of vintagey age behind them, this is a beaut. This is a maple necked model from Korea. It is, without a doubt, I think you might even be able to see the lines, it is without a doubt made of plywood or laminate. Sorry, plywood is not correct, it's laminate. And I'm just trying to find, maybe you can sort of see it there. If you look on the edges, you can see the different layers of laminate. Anyway, it is definitely laminate. And it is, actually I should have my other, where's the thing? No, that's not the thing, that's the torch thing. Let's put the big lights on. Yay! Yeah, it's made of laminate. So as a result, it's incredibly heavy. In fact, it's much heavier than wood. Although it is wood, but you know, it's heavier than bog standard wood. Okay, but I like that weight. Solidity of these guitars really suits me. So we've got a beautifully glossy neck. Some people don't like that glossy finish. It already has a really, really low action, a bit of fretwear which we're going to take care of, so we'll make the action even better. Actually, it's not too bad as it is. So this will just improve. We've got Fender stamped saddles down here. We'll take all those off and clean them up as always. And we've got nice yellowed vintage style plastic down here, which is genuine for the age as well. So, and there's a couple of, is that a surface scratch or something? A couple of little tiny blemishes, but overall it's fantastic. And we've got one or two tiny chips which I can probably touch up with some creamy white, vintage white that I've got. One or two there, as we can do those up and make them a little tidier. But there we have it, a lovely looking beast. Already a couple of people very interested in this. One from the Guitars and Keyboards group on Facebook, and that's the sort of podcast community from the Guitars and Keyboards shop in Brighton. And the guys there do a really great weekly techno podcast, and somebody from there is interested in it, and also got somebody else interested in it. It's come through Reloved Guitars. This is interesting. Two-tone colour here. It's separated out. How weird is that? Anyway, it's not the colour we want. That's a strange colour. It's definitely aged Olympic, but it's settled into two parts. Well, we'd have to get a stick and stir that. But this is probably the colour we will use. Again, it still needs a bit of a stir. These things settle. If anything, it's probably a little tiny bit too cream. This has always got a little bit of edge of green in it somewhere, which is always weird. But we've got some watercolor. No, that's clear lacquer anyway. So no, we've only got these two tones of white to choose from, and we might even mix. It might even just be a slight mix of the two, just for the sake of doing these touch-ups. But they're nitrocellulose, and this is probably, given the age, I don't know. It's probably polyurethane, but I've found in the past that for touching up tiny areas like that, nitro is fine, whatever anyone else says. Right, got a few little, sorry, spoke shave, hello. Sorry, I'm not used to having a great thing sitting on my head. I have to keep looking in the thing to make sure it's still on. Yes, it's still on. Okay, so what are we going to do with this? Well, we are going to give it a full setup. I'm going to take all the parts off in order to clean it thoroughly. with that in mind, I'm going to need yet another container, and I am fast running out of things to put things in because I'm sort of a bit behind in finishing things. In fact, that's a bit of a luxury, having a pot there with no guitar parts in it. So let us reuse this pot here. So I know spare bits of sandpaper can go in there, and we've got ourselves a free box. Yay! Okay, so just going to support the neck a little bit. Just before we do it, a quick look down the neck will tell me this is actually, yeah, it's got a bit of curve, a bit of relief in it, probably enough. So it's not too bad at all. There's still a bit of action we can still get out of it at this end, even more so than when we've done the frets. So if you haven't seen a Really Loved Guitars video before, the whole thing that I'm about is doing setups on budget guitars like this, but doing them in such a way that they end up, the way I like to think of it, is playing to their full potential. And in a way it's kind of built on a theory that I've had for a while, and is turning out to be the case, that any budget guitar can be a really superb playing guitar, and this one's no exception. The only thing that stops them being great playing guitars is the fact that they're almost never, in fact almost is probably being a bit generous there, but they're never given a good setup either in the factory or in the shop. Certainly not these budget guitars. In fact, what's kind of worrying is that I'm finding that very few, if any, expensive brand name guitars are even given setups either. So I think, you know, it's fair to say, I can say fairly safely at the moment, that the guitars you buy, unless you have requested that it has actually been set up by a proper guitar tech who knows what they're doing, they almost never would have been set up. And as a result, the vast majority of guitars that I see here, or have ever seen, are badly set up, and therefore actually only a fraction of their potential. And the myth out there in the consumer world, I suppose, is that you have to spend loads of money to get a decent playing guitar. Look at that, nice big solid steel block. That is quality. You do not get that. You do not get that in modern Affinity Squier Strats. I'll show you one of those. Look at that. Actually, that's not true. That's not a Squier. I'm lying. Let me try and find one. But it's not far off, actually. Okay. Notwithstanding that this isn't actually a bridge from a Squier, it's a bridge from an Encore, but they're not actually that much different. That is an unusually large, solid-looking block. This is a very small, light alloy by comparison, and this is much better quality. This even looks like a steel, whereas this is alloy. This isn't a Squier, but they're very similar to this. So a really nasty, cheap thing that crumbles as soon as you attack it with the spring anchor points, versus a really solid steel block. That just put this thing several points up in my estimation already. So I'm looking forward to getting this all set up, because I think this is going to be an absolute beaut. I have a feeling that, although there's a couple of people interested, common economic sense would probably tell me to auction this, and I'm not an auction person really, but I have a feeling that this guitar is such a nice unit that we might make financial sense to, for once, to do an auction. Having said that, somebody did express an interest, and I did say roughly what I would be looking for, and actually, to be honest, no matter what an auction would say, I'd be happy to get for it what I expected. So, you know, the way I work this is the price of the guitar plus my work that's gone into it, to me, that's... Oh, Christ, it still managed to stick me with a thing. Yeah, cost of the guitar plus some, fair recompense for the work I've done, to me is a good deal. So I'm not looking to make millions out of it. So I'm just going to take off all of these. Well, I would if I can get the screwdriver in there. Strap buttons off. Just because I'm going to check them and put them back on and make sure they're tight. And if they're not, then what I really would like is some of that felt that helps to keep them in place. I may have to buy some of those bits, but anyway. I've also ordered a whole load of pickup scratch plate screws. Just as a matter of course, I think I'm going to replace rusty ones, even though they kind of look superior. There's no harm in, they're only cheap little things, there's no harm in replacing them. There's no good reason not to. Again, I'm not in it to try and preserve period look exactly. I want to make the guitar play as well as possible. Now, it would be different if it was a £1,000 Japanese JV Squier maybe. In actual fact, common sense tells me that I ought to really take these saddles off and put them on my JV Strat, because I took some off my JV Strat and promptly lost them. So they won't like... Oops, that's not the way to do it. Talk about preparation, duh. Just going to pull off the tremolo strings. Springs, I said, not strings. Okay, and then this will not come out because it's still attached by 6 things. And I'll take them out from here. I think I may be obliged to do that. So the need to restore my JV Squier to pristine condition probably going to override the need to send this one back out with that Fender pieces on it. It doesn't really make any difference at all to the operation of the thing, so that's probably what I'm going to do, folks, just to let you know. I played this guitar, so the electrics are all good. At least they were until I flung them harshly on the floor then. Probably got some pickguard screws here, which are probably a bit better than the ones that came off it. I'm just going to have a look through and see what there is. Various different sizes of things. There's the standard ones. Don't want to overdo it. I'm also looking for reasonably clean ones. There are a few around in my collection, various different lengths and different size heads, but and as I say, I've got some new ones coming, so I may just clean up some of these and replace some of them, but not all. Okay. Yes, so yeah, the guitar plays really well. There's a little bit of crackling on one of the pots, one of the tone controls. I don't have any contact cleaners to blow it out with. I do have some rubbing alcohol which I could use at a push. What condition are these tremolo screws in? They're not too bad, a bit rusty down the length of them, but we do have some spares there if necessary. I'm just trying to see what we've got in sets. We've got a pair there of a certain length. got a clean one, cleanish one, smaller headed one, smaller one, similar one, very clean one, clean but smaller, clean the right size, or slightly smaller actually, smaller, smaller, and much smaller, much smaller. All comes in different sets. So clean, clean, dirty-ish, not dirty but not exactly sparkling. And that's just gives me an option if those are really rusty. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to clean under the pickguard and just put the pickguard back on, unless I want to have a look at the condition of the switch, which is going to be difficult unless I unsolder. They make these very tight, these connections. It's quite amazing. I don't know how they get access to it, but the tone is a bit on the iffy side, but apart from sort of pushing and pulling it quite a bit, I can't really get into there, so I may just leave that. I'll come back to it if I can get, and I meant to buy some switch contact cleaner. Anyway, so here we've got some good old naphtha, inert, harmless stuff. I'm just going to go around the edge of this pickguard where it's been, and it doesn't really make that much difference to what you can see, but I like doing it as a sort of hygiene factor. And it just means any of the grime that's sitting there doesn't go either way, under or come back out onto the guitar. I like it. It feels that bit cleaner. You can see, or you can, I don't know if you should be able to see maybe, but the difference in colour between the paint that's underneath here. I don't know where my thing's pointing now, to be honest. Let's just push this whole thing back a bit. Hope you can see. The colour difference is quite striking. So the exposed paint has nicely yellowed over the years. It's a good sign of its authentic age. Not that I had any reason to doubt it, but it is an old beastie. So just having done that little clean, I am going to just quickly look back at the screws we pulled out and see if any of them are nice and serviceable. We'll just reject the worst ones. Some of them end up by chance being clean and shiny. Some of them just corrode. I don't quite know what makes the difference, but so cleanish. And over the years you'll probably find that there are a couple of different sizes that have been put in and people have run out. They're not great. Some very small ones as well. So I'm going to go with some larger ones, looking at the state of the holes. I'm just thinking, yeah, the holes are a bit worn after many years of use. I won't use the largest ones, but I'll use some of the decent sized ones. And again, I can always replace these if I get some beautifully shiny ones come in the post. It should actually be there tomorrow. So once I've done this, I will take the knobs off, and the reason for that then is I can give those a clean. Obviously they'll stay nice and yellow in that lovely vintage feel, but it will let me just take somebody else's grime off them, so that when we put them back they'll be historic looking but clean. These aren't great condition, these screws, but they'll do. So yeah, coming back to the story, the theory I had was that any and all budget guitars can be made to play really well, and that the idea that you've got to spend loads of money to get a good guitar is a sort of big brand sponsored nonsense, if you ask me. And obviously there's a reason why big brands like you to believe that, so that everybody continually sort of spends upwards to try and get this decent playing guitar. And it's my view that you don't have to do that, and I set out to kind of demonstrate it. And in the 55 or so guitars that I've done, possibly even more now, but in all the guitars I've done, I'm pleased to say that that hypothesis has borne out, or been proven to be true, that you don't need to spend loads of money, and you can take a budget guitar, and with a bit of time and skill you can make it into a really great sounding guitar. So it's very satisfying to do that in a kind of technical sense, but also I don't know, there's something about, you know, opting out of the brand game. I don't know, I don't feel good about the idea of, you know, thinking the only way I can get a decent guitar is by spending £2,500 on a Gibson. You know, it's a piece of wood with some electronics, and of course a brand name and a lot of history behind the brand. But even then, it just doesn't seem right to me. So I set about discovering what it would take to set guitars up really well, and found fairly quickly that there were a small number of things that, if you did carefully and in the right order and with due care and attention, you could end up with fantastic playing budget guitars that you just want to keep and play, instead of having to feel like you're suckered into this scam of having to buy bigger and more expensive things and pay more and more of your hard-earned money. So having kind of set about and discovered that, it's now a great pleasure to take these guitars, find them on eBay, take them, do this work to them, and sell them on to people who don't want a cheap guitar and don't want to be ripped off by a load of hype and marketing bullshit. And that's what's nice about these relived guitars, is they're not anything to do with, there's no hype or marketing bullshit about them, apart from the fact that you can see what I'm doing. That's one of the most important parts of it. So you know that whatever I'm saying I'm doing. But you can see the things I'm doing, and you can see I suppose the simple steps, you might call it. There's nothing over complex about it, nothing over theorized anyway. So I want to take these things off, and I need to just get a bit of purchase under there. But these are very tightly fixed. I don't want to use anything hard to get under there. You can get certain kinds of tools that will help you do it, but in this case they feel well and truly solidly stuck. So my clever little system of sloping plastic is currently not working. Oh yeah, just about. So eventually come off. And then together I'll prise them off. Yes, so having set about to show that, I now can take pretty much any guitar that I buy and set it up nicely. And come on, isn't it funny how you haven't got any grip when you most need it? It's a really amazing light out there at the moment. Ooh. Crazy. Where's the camera? Hang on a sec. Camera. Winter's evening. Last sunlight of the day. Yes, so here we are. Let's get back to work. So, just trying to keep my mind on where the camera is. Yes, so having done that now, I'll take you through what I'm going to do with this here guitar. Apart from cleaning everything up, which I'm doing now, if I could get this damn knob off, jokes aside, it's really hard. There you go. You just need to get something under that bit. Yeah, so, okay, process of setting up. To me, there's no point in doing a setup, which means adjusting the action, and if you don't take care of the underlying frets. Okay, so a lot of people I've seen setting up guitars offer a setup service. Oh, God, it's so hard. Offer a setup service, sometimes charging around £30 or £40, and then on top of that, as an additional cost, they offer, if you want, they will do a fret dressing, and for me, there's no point in doing those things separately, because in my experience, all of the guitars that we see have uneven frets. So every guitar, you can pretty much say every guitar out there, apart from those that have been done by Luthier or Guitar Tech or someone like me, all have uneven frets. So the uneven frets puts a limit on how you can set your action. And so most people, most guitars you'll see, have the actions set just above a level where the limitations or the problems with the uneven frets will show up, and those problems would normally show up as buzzing or choking of strings. So most guitars, as I say, will have the action set to mask, if you like, the problem frets, and so for me, if you're going to do a setup, there's no point doing a setup unless you take care of the frets underneath. So, whoops, got too much of that lovely rubbing alcohol. Yeah, so Relove guitars always have a full setup done, and there's no point, in my view, doing full fret leveling. There's no point doing a setup without fret leveling, which is why you'll go through that process every single time. You'll never see me on the video here just tweaking some bridge saddles and chucking a guitar back out. It always goes through the full fret leveling process. After the fret leveling process, then we effectively reload the neck with strings, put it under tension, and then adjust the neck geometry with a truss rod, which is quite simple. Get that right, and then once we've done that, it's a matter of setting the action. And then we always find that the action that we can then set, we have a lot more option to go lower, because the uneven frets are now no longer a problem. And that's the bit, the sort of bridge action, if you like, where down here, that has a major impact on people's experience of the guitar. So if it's a guitar that somebody's owned and brought in for me to do, and I do the work on it, then they'll pick it up, and the action here will feel incredibly different because we've been able to lower it much more because of the even frets. But beyond that, it's the action here at the nut that makes the difference, a real difference. So we also set that to make sure that's right. Probably should have used just the naphtha to do these as well. Sometimes I find this works, sometimes the lighter fluid works better. Anyway, so that's the fret leveling, and then once we've leveled the frets, we've got to reprofiled the shape of the fret, because once we've leveled it, it's got a big flat spot on it which needs shaping out, and then there's a process of repolishing it to make the fret back into a really smooth thing that your strings will glide over. And once we've done that, then it's getting the neck geometry right, getting the bridge action set right, and getting the nut action right. And the nut action involves setting the depth of these slots so that the string goes over the fret at the correct height. And I think if there's one part of all of this that I've found the most surprising in my time of doing it, it's probably the action of the strings over there. And I would say that that's the single biggest difference you can make to the action of the guitar, is to change that. And we'll see us doing that. So it's all of those things plus then setting up. So we never just do a setup the way perhaps other people do. And while I'm here, I'm just going to do a bit of degunking on the back here as well, and just get some of this grime that builds up around the scratch plate, the plastic cover, sorry. Get that bit off and out of the way. It's always just a process of cleaning as we go along, just so we can see more of what's there and what condition things are in. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is take the neck off, and the thing is, I'm going to try here. You probably notice, if you've watched any of these videos, you may notice that I do everything unscientifically. What I mean by that is I don't refer to manufacturers' settings, or don't have to go and look up in books or online all the time. However, you just still need to use common sense. So for example, there should be an ideal tension that these bolts should be under in order to hold this neck on. If you over tighten it, it can crack the heel or it can crack the neck. But if you don't do it up enough, you don't make a good enough join. So how do we know? Well, we've got some tools. We've got a kind of torque setting built in here, and if I run it on 1, it doesn't bite at all, because it's not going to undo that. So I can put it on, say, 3, see what happens. Doesn't undo it. Put it on 4, doesn't undo it. Put it on 5, doesn't undo it. Put it on 6. Okay, so undoes it on 6, and it does both of them on 6. That's cool. So, just as a rule of thumb, if you wanted to do this up to approximately the same tension, then you could just make a note to do this back up on 6 on your torque setting the other direction. That's not precise and it's not entirely scientific, but it's a good enough guide to keep you roughly where you were before. And so to that end, I'm just going to get perhaps into a habit of sticking a little bit of tape on here, which may not stay on very long, and I'm just going to write on it my torque setting. So when I come back to put it on, torque equals 6. I'm going to do it up on 6, plus maybe a little bit of turning by hand. But no, it's not, as I say, it's not scientific, but it's good enough to be in the ballpark. At least you're not going to go miles over. Now if you came to undo it and you were doing a few guitars and you noticed most of them came off on a torque of 6, and then another one you had came off, wouldn't come off with 8, then you know that somebody screwed that one on unusually tightly. Okay, so as you're taking a neck off, rule number 1 is let it sort of tilt off, but as you're doing it, you need to be looking to find and see if there are any shims in place under there. And first thing we can say is there are no shims in evidence. Okay, there is a interesting set of hools that I've not seen before. It tells us it's February 1990, this neck, by the looks of it. So that's quite an old guitar. cue the Dire Straits song. 1990, so we're looking at 24 years old, this thing. That is a vintage guitar. 24 years. Made in Korea. A little bit of chipped wood already there. Chipped thing. We might just stick that back on with a piece of enamel. I'm just going to put it there for a minute. Not enamel, lacquer. Or a piece of glue. But altogether, that's an amazingly old guitar. And it is, as predicted, it is probably very easily seen. I don't know if you can, yeah. You can see that it is ply or laminate. So you've got the different layers of wood in lots of different directions, which is it accounts for its extra heaviness. Now there, you won't find any shortage of passionate and long fought debates online about whether laminate guitars are any good or not. Personally, what do I think? I tend to go with my mate Scott Grove, who's this online, not my mate, but you know, Scott Grove, this online guitar teacher, stroke, all-round annoying to some people, but very intelligent and well-informed person as far as other people are concerned. But Scott Grove has some pretty strong opinions, and one of them is that he doesn't believe in the tonewood argument, the idea that there are certain kind of, he doesn't believe in the idea that the wood that the guitar is made of, electric guitar wood, it has any direct impact on the sound. And there's a strong kind of logic behind his position on that, and that is that the electric guitar sound is made by the passage of strings, metal strings, through the magnetic field created by the pickups, and the pickups pick up the kind of disturbance in the magnetic flux, and they then send it to an amplifier which turns it into the sound that you hear. And the argument is that nowhere in that is it possible for the wood of the guitar to have a material effect on the tone, because the tone is a result of more or less vibrations of the string through the magnetic field, and then it's a result of the pickup characteristics and the amplifier and the dynamics of the room you're in. So I can totally get that, and it makes an awful lot of sense to me. But it's hotly contested. A lot of people really don't buy that. A lot of people, I suppose, you can tell I don't believe it, so I'm going to say this, but a lot of people, I think, have a lot invested in the idea that the wood, there are different tone woods that have different characteristics, or different sonic or acoustic characteristics. Now, what's true is that the wood of a guitar absolutely has an impact on its acoustic properties. See if I can just wipe off this excess glue. Yeah, so it's true to say that when you have a thing that's made of wood, if you're listening for its acoustic properties, one kind of wood will create a different acoustic sound to another, which is a completely reasonable proposition. But the argument is, or the point is, that it won't change the tone of an electric guitar, regardless of whether it changes its acoustic characteristics with the amp off. So as far as an electric guitar goes, I think, to me, a laminate guitar like this will play indistinguishably from a timber built guitar, whether it's basswood or alder or agathis or whatever the different woods are that Fender guitars have been and are made of. So I don't think there's any tonal impact that this laminate will have on the electronic sound of this guitar. However, I do think it's likely that it will have an impact, quite a significant impact, on the acoustic sound of it. I'm just going to try and set this standing for a minute, and I need this little chip to be under a little bit of pressure to stay in place. It's really hard to see whether it's doing what I want it to do. Yes, I think it is. Stay in place. We'll leave that for a minute. Meantime, I'm gonna look. It's got my name on it, Sam. That's hard to believe. It's as if it was made for me. It's worth a photograph. It's like kind of spooky, you know what I mean? Dun, 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 23rd of February. 23rd of February 1990. Yep, so I'm just going to hang this out of the way for a minute, but we will come back to this. So just a quick look at it. Nice glossy lacquer finish. The lacquer on the neck itself is in pretty good condition. It's not been worn away like sometimes you find, but it is old, so we'll treat it with some care, and we'll not too long. We'll get it protected up with masking tape, and then we'll get straight on into leveling those lovely frets. Meantime, while we're here at it, I'm just going to take away, these are all in the wrong order as well, but hey, I'm going to take apart this thing, and I'm going to just go on a little hunt for replacements. What a nice block, that's really impressive. So I'm going to quickly hoik all this apart. Shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. Did you see that? This is where I'm going to need other glasses. Okay. Dun 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 dun. Damn. Note to self. Springs like to spring. I could see that coming. That just caught the edge of the thing, and then it went doing. And who knows where it ended up. It's a mighty fine little thing anyway. Well, your guess, I think, is going to be as good as mine. Could be anywhere. Aha, except it isn't just anywhere, it's there. Phew. That's what you get from not panicking. Right. Get the rest of these off. So look how filthy this bridge is. One of the good things about this is in taking all this off, we just get a chance to clean it all off, make it look a hell of a lot nicer before we put it back on. Now that little chip on the bodywork there is a bit unavoidable. If it doesn't repair like that, then I'll do a kind of over repair with the white lacquer we've got, just to seal it up and then a bit of clear lacquer on top. But with a bit of luck, that chip should stay in place. Okay, so all the bits off, and they're all a bit grubby. And again, while we're at it, let's give this a good clean down. Just open the window. Yeah, I'm still recording. Never know when it runs out of batteries. There's no way of knowing, so it doesn't last for too long. So I guess I'll just go until we conk out-ish, and then do something else and put it on charge. So a bit of a clean up, get rid of some of the age-old grime. And there's plenty of it. It's many years of goo that's caught up in all of these things. A good clean sort of a last polish with something slightly cleaner. And then we'll just put it off to one side for a minute while I go and get some, or find some spare components to go in here, which will do exactly the same job. They just, just won't be the Fender stamped ones, which I do need for my ill-gotten purposes. So here we are. Look, you can see I've got a nice set right here. It'll do just the job. In fact, I've got about 12 of them if I want them. Millions of them, in fact, and loads of springs too. So if I had not found the spring I was looking for, wouldn't have been in any trouble. Okay, so what have we got? We've got short, long, short, long, 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 long. So 2 short ones and the rest long ones. We've got some that are slightly yellower. No, they're all about the same. Okay. Take the cleanest looking ones we can find. 4 of those and 2 of the short ones for the ends. Oh, that's a shame. That's got a bit of a dent on it, so I will exchange that out. We'll take the short. Is that good? Yeah. We'll take the short ones out of here and ditch this. And the question is, are they actually short? Yes, I think they are. We'll just change over and leave the substandard one off to one side. So lots of fiddling. Actually, when you take it all out, they're probably the same size. It's the annoying bit. They are the same size. No, wait a minute, they are. No, they're slightly longer. I thought I was going mad for a minute, but they are actually a bit longer. Okay. Long ones into there, and then put the short ones back in here. Okay. Bit of cannibalizing going on. So that's the only thing I'm going to change on this, because just it's one of those things where you have a need for the component elsewhere. And since I'm playing God in Reloved Guitars Workshop, I can do it. Alright, and then these only go in one way because the blocked end of the little grub screw is always downwards. Okay, so our 2 ends. Okay, get that out of the way. And we'll use the same springs and same things there. So again, this is a matter of cleaning these up. Not the easiest things, they're a little bit fiddly, but you can do them with a bit of patience. And it's usually the front end of it that's the mucky part, so give that a, I want to get the bulk of the grime off that front end. It'll look very much cleaner. Sorry, I'm getting the cloth caught up in the microphones there. Not the ideal setup, but it works. Okay, so this is a bit longer winded than is ideal, but again it's the thing. Even if I wasn't changing these over, I would still be cleaning them, because cleaning this tremolo plate, or the bridge, whatever we want to call it, it goes a long way to making the guitar feel newer, cleaner, taken care of. You know, for 10 to 20 minutes of fiddling, it's kind of worth doing. It's, you know, I just like to give it that extra attention. You know, make it look as good as it possibly can by the time it gets to its new owner. And I have seen other people who take guitars, buy guitars on eBay, do some work, set them up, do sometimes quite odd things to them, but you know, nonetheless do some work on them. And surprisingly, having done some work, just sell them without cleaning them. And so it's this sort of historic gunk travelling with the guitar. And I can't see why, if you're doing any work on it, why don't you take the time just to freshen it up a bit and dispose of all that historical goo. There's no reason why to give it back to somebody dirty. And there was, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a guy on eBay who buys second-hand guitars. He tends to buy 7-string guitars, and he kind of butchers them to make wide-spaced 6-string guitars for people with big hands. And you know, you stop and think, well, that's actually not a bad niche. It's not a bad idea. But this chap, he's got a sort of it's quite sad actually. He's got a strange nature. I mean, he, by his own admission, there's no secret of it. He was in some accident years ago and suffered some head injury, serious head injury, and I think it sort of has some knock-on effect on his social skills or something. But he seems to kind of wind people up. But he also, the thing that I noticed about him is that he does this sort of slightly clumsy work that people think is a bit like butchering guitars, which kind of doesn't make him a lot of friends. But he also then sends the guitars out filthy, so he doesn't clean them or anything, which seems like a really strange oversight. You know, if you're going to do all this stuff, or why not refresh the guitars a bit, make them nice. Anyway, so you can see I'm just putting these back in. It doesn't matter what position they go in right now, they're just going in to hold them in place. They'll get adjusted a bit later on when I come to do the intonation. Okay. Got to make sure they go in at the right angle. It's quite easy to cross thread them at this early stage when you're putting them back on. So try and avoid that. And also trying to avoid as much as possible too many more fresh fingerprints down into this chrome thing, the bridge plate. Since we've gone to the trouble of cleaning it, seems silly. But I'll give it another rub down in a second. Okay, so freshly shined up bridge, feels a bit taken care of, a bit newer. Get the hairs out. Got the screws with the bridge saddles with the short grub screws in the correct position. Let me just have a think about this one. What is different about that? Okay, good. Right, I'm not going to do anything with those. I'm just going to put them there and wait till the time comes to reinstall it, which hopefully won't be too far from now. And just give it a quick polish over. Nice, you see? Lovely. Now we've got this stuck back in place, which I'm just going to ignore for now until we get it back together. This guitar, you can see actually where some of the, there's a little bit of wear of some of the surface finish. So over the years, where it's worn a little bit, you can see it's lighter underneath, where the kind of old paint has been worn off. But that's great. I mean, it's part of the character of this thing. Okay, so that's going to go off out of the way, like Blue Peter, and it's time to get stuck into this lovely neck over here. And again, I'm going to give it a clean down. Put these little fellas out of the way somewhere. Going to need to do something with them. Put them in there for now. Yeah, I'm going to give the neck a quick clean down with nap through it as well, just to take any oils off. It's lacquered, so it's going to be shiny anyway. So this is just taking sort of surface grime off. And being a lacquered neck, it's quite easy to clean, or a lot easier to keep clean than a rosewood neck. Now the reason I'm cleaning it just now is that it makes it easier for it to hold onto the masking tape that I'm going to use to protect it. And I'm just giving the tuners a bit of a quick clean as well. They're quite grubby, so I would want to spend a little bit of time getting down inside there and cleaning them up. Possibly, if I had a couple of extra minutes, I might just take them off altogether and clean all around it thoroughly. Not absolutely essential, but again, it just all adds to the sort of sense of giving it a thorough refresh. Hard to get into those bits at the front there unless you do, but then it requires a bit of putting back together again. But I'm going to do it just to show you the depths to which we will sink, the lengths to which I will go. And we've got a string tree there, a high one and a low one, and the high one is always closer to the nut and the low one is always further away. I will get my thingy spanner. We're still running? We're running! Amazing. And I'll just slack these off just enough to do it by hand. And these are good quality tuners. There's no problems with them. It just gives me a chance to clean underneath. That was already loose. Clean underneath. We'll also want to take these screws out while we're at it. And then that makes the whole thing come away easily. Again, they're all of a size, so you won't miss or mistake the tuner screws for something else when it comes time to put them back on. They're quite easy to spot. So, okay, so we're now getting, after all of that time, you can see that I've just been assessing really, just taking care of grime and dirt and cleaning up the bridge and the bridge saddles, and all of that, sort of a bit of a preamble really to where we're going to go now, which is doing the neck. And it's kind of as if we're getting a bit more serious as time goes on, because the neck and the frets and the fretboard, this is what really matters. This is the heart and soul of your guitar. Okay, so off come all of those tuners. We'll clean them up as we put them back on in this case. Doing this, why do you do it? Well, why not? you know, you can clean all the individual parts, you can get into places you wouldn't be able to reach otherwise, and you can also check everything in quite a bit more close-up detail than you could if you didn't do this. And what does it take? A few more extra minutes. No big deal. So you can see that on a guitar like this, the tuners are done with the, I think it's the 11mm post hole, which is a hell of a lot nicer than the cheap nasty Chinese tuners you get on some Bullet Strats and some Affinity Strats actually, and all the Encores and so on, and also some Sun Mustangs and other weird and wonderful things. But the cheaper the guitar, the more you're likely to find a small 9mm hole, I think it's 9, or 8mm, which is pretty much good for nothing. It doesn't allow you to upgrade, and if you don't have the right size holes and you want to upgrade, you need a drill press to be able to get on and drill those holes out and put new quality tuners on. Okay, so now here comes the business. I'm going to start getting this ready, and then what I'll do is I'll take a break, switch camera views, and give myself a break from having this on my head. But first off, we're going to make sure, before the standard stuff, as I come to do the neck job or fret job, I will always mask off the fingerboard. Now, you know, this stuff costs £1.10 a roll in the market, and you can, you know, it's cheap, so use more than less is my advice. And you can see that you can, to begin with, you can obviously pull simple strips off and chug it on and just make sure that it lines up nicely with the frets. I'll jump that because that's not going to do that very well. Yeah, so just chuck it on, make sure it's all sealed and covered off. And all the way through this process now of doing the frets, you've got to make sure that the fingerboard is adequately protected at all times. So at any stage of this, if the masking tape lifts up or peels back, just stop whatever you're doing and put some more tape on. Never put too much on, because it's protecting that fingerboard, which is, after all, the sort of heart and soul of your guitar playing experience. So, you know, what price protecting it. So then I go and pinch these around the back, which makes it easier to get off at the end, believe it or not. Like a bunch of little tags like that. But it's now obvious that I can't continue with that thickness, so I'm going to need to cut a whole load of a different thickness. And to do that, I'm going to use my cutting board, knife, and some time. And that's going to require a bit of time. So I won't kind of bore you with the obvious process of cutting bits of masking tape thin enough to fit the various different sizes of frets. I'm going to assume in this case that you can work that one out. But I will stop now, and I'll come back when all this is done and we'll do the next stage. Okay, so pauses. Welcome back. Marvellous, magical, mysterious masking tape. Covers everything. All the fingerboard covered up, all the frets exposed. That's what we're going to work on. Okay. So the purpose of this part of the whole thing is to level the frets. Having leveled the frets, then what we want to do is to reshape them so that they're smooth. And after we've reshaped them, we then want to be able to polish the frets back into a nice smooth playing surface. If I get a piece of paper, I can show you roughly why. So I guess I'm going to draw it your way up. So imagine there's your thing, there's your frets. Let's say we've got one that's uneven. The uneven fret, obviously we're going to take a fret leveling file and we're going to cut that, well, get them all level basically. And to do that we're going to obviously end up taking the top off some and leaving some untouched or hardly touched. Now that will then give us a fret that's shaped like that, which when the string is supposed to sit on top of the fret, it's supposed to sit right there in the central position. Okay, so it's dead center of the fret. When you have a flat surface on the fret, what happens is the string then goes to this edge, or whichever, wherever. If the bridge is down here, if that's the bridge, then this becomes the point where the string sits, which is, as you can see, is a certain amount of distance away from the center. So the intonation of your string gets messed up. Not only that, of course, it's full of horrible scratches, the top of that fret, and it's also flat, so it doesn't make a nice surface to bend strings, so it's horrible to play. So the next part of what we've got to do is we have to take a flattened off fret, and our job is to re-profile it, which means to reshape it, and that's just a really crude version of it, but reshape it so that we get rid of the flat spot and return it to a nice curved domed shape, in which case at the end, I know what it looks like, at the end the string sits in the central place and it's nice and smooth. So there's two things. First of all, one is we level the fret with this file. Two, we reshape it so that we cut off these extra sharp edges, and we reduce the flat spot and make it into a nice curve again. And then the third part of it is we polish that all up so that it ends up being beautifully shiny. And all of that we do whilst keeping this point here exactly the same height as it was there. When we lower this to there, that point is exactly the right height, and so is that one. In doing all of this work and shaping it, we don't want to reduce that point. That's got to stay at exactly that height, and there it is at that point as well. So we've got to do all of this work without upsetting the even fret, the levelness of the frets that we achieve in the first stage. Okay, so that's why it's a three-stage process. In the first stage, I'm going to check the levelness of the frets, but the very first thing we do is ensure that our neck is straight before we do this. Some people suggest using a rule to do this. There are special rules, rulers, metal rules, straight edges you can have that do it. I like to do it by eye because I can also trust my eye to do it. And this is a tiny bit convex. And so, as a result, if it's slightly convex, I want to take it counterclockwise to see into here. We'll do it counterclockwise with a correct size piece. A tiny turn counterclockwise will take that convexity out of it and flatten it. It's pretty much spot on actually, but I'm going to do it anyway. So counterclockwise. Okay, that's all it will need. Yeah, lovely. Okay, so having done that, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a check to put this guitar on the leaderboard. Sorry, you're going to get dazzled. Soz. Yeah, going to put a reading onto the fret leaderboard of shame. You don't need to do this if you were doing it, you just need to get on and level the frets, but I'm going to check all of them. Now, straight away, I'm finding very little unevenness, which is quite encouraging. It's also quite rare. The fret leveling tool, the fret rocker, this thing here, is very simple, and it just works. It's a straight edge, and it works by you put the straight edge across 3 frets at a time. And then you try to rock backwards and forwards over the centre fret. And if their frets are not level in relation to each other, then you'll get a clicking noise as the rocker rocks. Now, this doesn't mean, by the way, that the fret you're on, the centre fret, is actually high. You can get the same result if the one next to it on the other side is low. But what you know is there's a relative unevenness, and that's the important bit. So it's really important to remember that this is not an absolute measure. It's just a measure of relative evenness. But it's important to do, because it gives you a sense of how even all your frets are, and if they're very uneven, it will go some way towards explaining why your action is usually set quite high. But this is pretty good, actually. Yeah, unusually good. So I think this has been done in the past, which is a change. And I can pretty much tell that because the action on this guitar already is very good, unusually good, way better than most of the guitars. In fact, all of the guitars that have come in here is probably the best playing action that I've seen. So, but even still, despite having been done, you can see I'm making some marks, which means there are still some uneven frets on this neck. So we're going to take care of all of these little marks, but again, they aren't much, so we don't expect to be taking much material away. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21 fret neck, of which we've got 19 we can check, of which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 19. Let's call it 10 out of 20. It's not exact, but just broadly speaking. So that's not bad at all. It's in the higher scoring, or the better scoring end of things in here. So we've got a Squier, Strat, Korea, 50%. As I say, much better than most. I'm experimenting while I'm doing this, by the way, with listening to the radio in my ear. Normally I don't, but it sort of helps pass the time for me. Alright, so we have 50% of the frets on here have some unevenness, but you probably see, if I keep this still, you can see that actually that's quite mild even still. Compared to some guitars, that's a really nice neck. But we're still going to go ahead and level them. Leveling them will achieve, obviously, the benefit of leveling them. That will give you back options on lowering your action even further. It will also remove any surface dents or wear anyway, so that's another bonus of leveling it. So you might do that even if your frets were perfectly level. You might still want to level them all in order to get rid of wear. And in this case, it's a little bit of both. There's a bit of wear down here, and we're also going to get rid of these high spots. So the next stage of this, as we're getting ready to do the leveling, is to mark the frets with permanent marker, and just literally draw across the top of each fret with black permanent marker. And if you're going to do this, be very careful that you don't miss and draw down the edges of the masking tape, because the tape stuck to particularly a maple fretboard like this acts as a capillary, and it sucks the black marker pen onto the fretboard and spreads it, which is a real pain, because about the only way to remove permanent marker from a maple, a lacquered maple fretboard like this is to use micromesh sanding sheets, which basically means you have to sand the thing down and then repolish it, which is a pain. So I'm just being as careful as I can, which is why I bought myself just recently a sharper or finer point, so I don't run so much of a risk of doing that. Right, here we are then. Let's have a look. Okay, we're ready to go. So we have the neck marked up. Now the reason we mark it is so that the marking, permanent marker is a way of us knowing when we've seeing where we've actually taken off metal off the frets and where we haven't. So get my fret leveling file, and I start down this end and just run it down the full length of the neck, tipping it slightly off the edge first to get started on that corner, and then work my way in strips in towards the centre of the neck. I'll just keep it going. Now we know that this guitar has pretty good condition frets already, so I really don't expect to find any major problems or have to go too far with this. But I'm just trying to keep even pressure all the way down and reach every fret and down to the edge, and then a tip slightly off the edge. Okay, so once you've done one run, stop and just brush off the metal swarf, and then I can now very quickly see the parts of the frets that I've missed or that are high or low, and in this case I've actually just missed one tiny spot, which I can just now pick up by running the other way. Okay, so now you can be pretty certain that this now will have removed any unevenness, and you can, if you're not sure, you can just go back and double check it, but it's perfectly level now. Now that's great. We've cured the uneven, cured it of any unevenness, and now all that remains is to reprofile it and polish it. So stage one done. Stage two, we get the marker pen and we go back over the top of this whole, each of the frets. Again, being very careful not to get this pen down the side of the masking tape. And then what we're going to do next, if you think about the stages in this, we've done the leveling. Leveling's done. We're now going to put a file, concave file, which has got diamond edge on it, and we're going to go up and down this until we take away this material, and we're going to reprofile each of the frets, and that will reshape them into the right shape, and then the final stage after that will be to polish. And it's the polishing in a way that's possibly the hardest part of all of this. To polish it, we've got to be very, very thorough and rigorous, because it's all too easy to leave tiny, tiny scratches on the frets, which deceptively can look like you're shining it up nicely, but in fact it's only when you get down to playing the thing you actually notice that it, the scratches are still there, and it makes playing and bending strings a horrible scratchy business. Now we're going to use the medium size or medium fret side of this tool, and here's the concave file with the diamond surface, and if we go up and down on this, we're going to cut away the edges of the flat spots until it reprofiles, reshapes the fret. And we don't need to use a huge amount of force. It's quite subtle a job. We just need to be on guard, and the reason we've got black marker pen on here is we keep on cutting away on those shoulders until we're just left with a very thin strip of marker pen down the middle of the fret. And when we get to that, we know that we've both reshaped it and retained the height of the middle bit in the top. And that's what we're aiming now to do, is to end up with all of these frets with the kind of shoulders taken off and a little tiny thin pencil thin strip of, or pencil thin, like microscopically thin strip of marker pen down the middle. And that will tell us we've correctly reshaped the fret, but not reduced its height anymore. And that's the critical thing. And the marker pen serves that very necessary task or function of telling us when we're going too far. So we just keep on going all the way down. It's not quick, as you can see from the whole of this job. About an hour and a half to do all of this. You'd do a little bit quicker if you were doing it and not talking and showing what was going on, but generally speaking, even at a fair old pace, it's about an hour and a half to get this, to do this right. And we're about halfway through it at the moment. But there's no simple way around it. And once you've done it a couple of times, it becomes quite sort of clear really why it doesn't get done very often, and why most guitars haven't had it done. It's a lot of hard work. But it is also, it's a kind of magic. It gives you a completely different guitar than you had before. But kind of maybe even more satisfying way. It gives you a budget guitar that you never expected to play that well. It turns that into a guitar that will outplay most of the guitars your mates have got, for example, or have paid a hell of a lot more money for. Because this is what it takes, not spending more money on the guitar itself. It's taking care of these parts of it. I'm listening to Radio 4 in my ear. It's telling me about the Jeremy Thorpe sex scandal. It's pretty depressing. So when you consider right now, we're in a similar sort of place where we're pretty much all waiting to hear some god-awful revelation about child abuse and how far it extends in public life or in the establishment. These are going quite well, they're quite easy to do. There's a guitar I worked on yesterday, Sun Mustang, which had jumbo frets, but it also had them worn almost flat. Not worn flat, actually. Filed almost flat by a previous guitar tech, I can only presume, or the owner, in an attempt to, I don't know, clear up, reduce the wear, or clear them, make them play better or something. But anyway, they were practically flattened, and as a result, I had to really work a long time on this stage to get any sort of shape back into them. But luckily, as they were jumbo frets, there was enough metal to recover the rounded shape. So I'm quite confident that it's going to end up playing well. this is much milder, so not nearly as much work required to reprofile these. As you can see, it's not inconsiderable. It takes a while. You've got to maintain your focus and confidence all the way through, and resist any urge to hurry or try and take shortcuts. Not that there really are that many you can do with this, I'm afraid. So this thing report I'm ready for in my ear is now on KGB and blackmail, because people, ministers, were having homosexual affairs. Oh God, where is it going to end? Right, 6 more. Chap on the radio just now is talking about a secret file, on a police file on whatever his name was, you know, oh God, Blokey, Jeremy Thorpe. Apparently the police had a file on him tracking his movements with young men in hotel rooms in North Devon. Almost there. Right. Okay. Brushing off all the leftover stuff. Okay, so you can see now that we've done part 2 of 3. Stage 2 of 3. Why can't I get this? Because I'm trying to put it in one place. Right. Now, the final stage required for this is to polish it, and to do that we're going to need to use a couple of different grades of paper. We've got some 240 grit and some 800, as well as some micro mesh paper, which is padded stuff. 240, right. So the challenge of this, it's not difficult, it's just got to be thorough. The challenge is to we've got marks left by this file on the tops of these frets. We've got marks left by this file on the sides. That, let's call that 0 grit, really scratch, rough scratches. Call that 300 grit. This is 240, so we're going to go backwards on that, but take away the marks left by this. Reduce all of these back to 240. We're going to do it until all of the these marks are vanished. Once we're sure of that, we're then going to go to 800 and work as many 800s as required to remove all the 240 scratches, and then finally we're going to end up with a series of papers, micro mesh papers, which will take it to a lovely shine. So it is a process of discipline. We can only move on from each stage when we're absolutely convinced that the previous marks, or the marks we're trying to get rid of, have actually gone. So I'm going to begin straight away with 240 and my fingers, and this thing is going to be there. After 2 pieces I'm going to stop and check up close with very bright lights to try and find out how we're doing. So the point here is 240 is powerful enough to take away metal off your frets. So it is wearing it down, but providing you do them all the same amount, you're wearing them all down an equivalent or similar amount. So we're getting rid of the original scratches, but we're doing it in such a way that if the frets are reducing in height, they're reducing all similar amounts in height, so we keep the relative levelness between them, which is the main goal. The ones at the ends tend to get overlooked, funnily enough. It's quite hard to get sort of going at the speed when you're on the final one. Okay, so the first one is pretty much worn out, and I'm going to brush off the dust. It gets pretty dirty at this stage, so keep brushing it off, ideally near the floor so you don't end up breathing it all in. I'm going to go straight into doing a second one, and after this one then I'll have a look at the up close with a magnifying glass and see where we are. Hello.
Ching, ching, ching,
Oh, it's ting ting Christmas time. Look, it's the mince pies. Thank you. So I'm just at I'm doing two things. I'm doing this and I'm listening to the sordid Jeremy Thorpe thing on the news.
Oh yeah.
God, it's just
It's
so...
Brent Boy.
Oh, it's just so...
And his love of helicopters.
So grim.
I know.
Depressing.
I know.
So English.
That's what a privileged education in a boarding school is.
Apparently, well, actually, for all the people I've ever met who have gone to privileged boarding school, it's exactly the case.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah. But it's not true.
Cause and effect.
It's not true. That's a terrible generalisation. But all the people I've ever met who went to boarding school were trained in homosexuality in that school. It's not true, except when it is. Right.
You're right then.
Yeah, I'm going to stop this a minute and eat my mince pie. Well, just did a check, and we've got rid of all the marks from the fret leveling file, so we can now move on to the 800. And again, I'm just going to carry on using my fingers to begin with. And this just needs to replace the 240 grit scratches now with 800 grit. And the same principle applies. We're going to cover all of the frets equally. Turn the neck round every now and then. This Jeremy Thorpe thing is shocking. The fact that he was going to become a home secretary, potentially become a home secretary with access to security, national security issues, whilst still being subject to blackmail himself for his sexual carry-ons. Now I'm going to use the foam block, and it's going to run up and down. And this is kind of easier now, so we'll use the block from here on onwards. But I'm hearing somebody showing me sort of paid somebody to shoot his teenage rent boy lover's dog. What? Anyway, Norman Scott. Yep, looking good. So let's move now to the micro mesh, and this is a series of papers that goes from 1500 to 12,000, and it's sort of easier part of the process now. But because the jump is currently from 800 to 15, it's probably worth sticking on this one for a little bit longer. If you're wondering, by the way, why I'm wearing my pyjamas, it's because it's a Sunday and it's cold. And why oh why should a gentleman in his own shed have to wear trousers? Oh, lads, in your shed you wouldn't wear your pyjamas, I mean your trousers, if you could wear your pyjamas, would you? Right, actually it's only because they're just really comfy. Okay, so now we're moving on, 1800. 2,400. Right, won't be long now. And 3,200. Really getting now into the polishing. The frets are looking great already, looking flat as flat can be, but also starting now to look really shiny. And of course no marks whatsoever, all those old surface imperfections all gone. It took a while, over a few months, to perfect the routine for this, because of course there are lots of ways you can try it, and everybody will do it a different way and get different good results, no doubt. But I think when you come to do this, you have to work out what works for you, and stick with it, and, alter it slowly. Let's make small alterations if you want to try different techniques. It used to be, for example, that at the end of this I would have done pass with the Dremel polishing lock and polishing compound, and it's discovered since that it doesn't really improve on this 12,000 grit paper that we're currently heading for. So was no real point in doing it. It just made a hell of a mess, frankly. 20 minutes of effort and a hell of a mess for no tangible benefit. Not really a very good place for doing it. So here we are, second to last one. So we've done. At this point we can then unpick the tape. It will leave some residue and there'll be some dirt from the dust from the sandpapering and filing that we've done, so be prepared to give your guitar neck a clean after this. But generally speaking, it's fairly straightforward now. Pull off all the stuff, and we should be heading towards a lovely neck ready to reinstall onto the guitar and to get stuck straight into the next part of the setup, which will be reinstall the neck, load up with strings, set the neck relief when it's loaded up, then set the bridge action, then set the nut action, and then finally set the intonation. So there's a few stages left to go, but it's sort of the downhill part of it now. The hard bit, I think. Personally, I think the hard bit is done. Okay, so here we are. Carefully removing this. We know that there's lacquer on here, so we don't want to run any risk of pulling it off by ripping it off too quickly. So lovely fingerboard, still nice and clean, well looked after. Come on. Slowly but surely. Right, here we go, getting there. Now there's a little tag on the back of this neck, which used to be probably the, I don't know, made in China or no, made in Korea sticker. So I'm going to get rid of that because it doesn't say anything anymore. It's just a cheap sticker. Right, all of that off. Let's get rid of the paper. Here we are. Take this off. Okay, just a quick bit of solvent on here. beautiful, nice job. Okay, I'll give you a quick look at this and then we might stop, or we could just plough on. But there you go, beautiful neck, lovely fresh frets and perfectly levelled frets as well. That's the key thing. Looking nice. Let's have a look where we are. Let's move a few things out of the way. Actually, we could just go straight in to the next stage because we're in a good position with this one. Got everything cleaned and ready. Okay. Not the best ever fix on that little bit of glued paint, but hey, see if I can just get this neck back in without that little chip coming out again. Alright, that's alright. So there's no shim that needs to go under there, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to get the neck bolts, and I've got my little guide here that's telling me to put this together again at torque setting of 6, which I can dial onto there. So I put it on 6, give this a clean. Right, so I'm just going to place these all in position and lightly put them in, ensuring that they're all going in properly, and that's mostly a feel thing. That's gone in a bit, and we'll go to the front diagonal. That's nice, and again mostly in with that one. That's good too. So I'm just going to check visually, make sure it is going on the correct position, and that's gone in, and then the diagonal goes in, and then we're in position, and it's clicking on the torque. So those 4 screws have gone in to the 6 setting that they were on before. Just a quick visual look round. Everything looks like it's absolutely tightly in place the way it was before. That little crack is glued in place. There's nothing we can do about that. That was going to break off because it was already broken. But the neck is now firmly on, and we're ready to put all these nice bits back on. And we'll start with the bridge, as I say, which is now a lot cleaner than it was. We'll start by putting finding the 6 tremolo screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. Right, finally get there. And again, just take care with putting these back in so that you put one in and then line the others up first. Make sure that nothing goes in sort of cockeyed. Always just tighten up as you go. Don't. No, with the tremolo screws, they don't have to be very tight at all. If you're going to, it depends if you're going to use the tremolo or not. Slack those off a little bit. You need a bit of slack in these tremolo screws to allow the tremolo to be pulled flat if you're not going to use it, and also it needs to let the tremolo move as well if you are going to use it. So rule is do not slam that down hard on the do not screw it in hard onto the deck, because it's not what it needs. I'm going to get the 3 springs out now and pull those back on. I'm going to do it diagonally, or pull it out. They're not under a lot of pressure because I can see already that the claw plate is pretty well unscrewed, so that means that the pressure the springs are exerting is less, as little as it can possibly be. If we wanted to put the tremolo block under greater pressure, we would screw in that plate, the claw plate thing, which we can do if we want to set the tremolo arm up. Now, as it stands, this is going to be pulled flat against the body of the guitar anyway, because there's no string pressure on it. Okay, right, looking good so far. We've got the knobs, which we'll put back on. I start with the zeros up towards the screw on the I don't start with tone, do I? Bloody hell. Why did I do that? Damn, that wasn't necessary. I made that harder for myself than it needed to be. Right, let's do this properly. Volume with the naught pointing at the screw, which also means that the words are pointing at the player, like you're going to read them, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, those knobs nicely in place. Let's stop this heater now. Looking nice already. Can't wait to get those strings on, but there's no point putting the strings on yet. Guess why? Because it's got no tuners on it. And those I've already cleaned. So the process of putting these back on will be a lot easier. I didn't clean these bits. Okay, and then I'm just going to find me the 6 little screws. Where did that come from? How strange. I have no idea where that came from. That's weird. I'm sure that wasn't in there earlier on. Okay, 6 of those. My screwdriver. Thank you. Okay, so we're just about ready to put the tuners back on. And so to begin with, when you're putting the tuners on, just drop the little sheath thing in and do it up sort of finger tight, and then what you then do is go the other side, put the screw in, and then come round again and tighten up the nut on this side, and then go around the other side and tighten the screw up finally. Okay, nearly there. Okay, so this is the bit where you're just going to position these things now by dropping in the little screw. Again, don't do it up too hard. It's just to tack it in place effectively. Actually, it's as hard. To be honest, it's as hard as you need to do it. You don't need to come back and do it again. And the real holding in place bit happens when we go around the other side and tighten up with the adjustable spanner. Okay. Looking nice and clean. Okay, almost there. So those screws hold the thing in place, and now flipping it over this side we can do the last bit with the adjustable spanner. And if you're going to do that, be really careful to make sure it doesn't skip off and round off. You've got to be quite precise with these things. It's take a little while, but once this is done up, that will be fine. It'll be pulling the machine head against. In fact, what's happened on this one, that's why I think that's thread stripped at some point, so we won't go any further with that one. Still haven't worked out why I stick my tongue out when I'm doing these things. Okay, almost there. Right, and then we'll be ready in a minute to do the stringing. Put this little fella under pressure. Lovely. I guess while we're at it, we had better put the string trees back on. Big one at the front, small one at the back. I still don't know where that washer came from. It's really worrying. Small one at the back, big one at the front. I've ordered some roller string trees, which I much prefer to use in future, but they won't be here for a while. It's just I think for a couple of quid a time, it's probably an upgrade I'd recommend. And I thought eventually, instead of just recommending it, I better get myself some ordered in so I can do it, but I can't do it quite yet. Okay. Here comes the fun. Let's get in there and do the thing with the string. Put these out of the way. So, change glasses. Sorry if this is a boring camera angle. Let's move it around a bit. Shove it over here. It's all kind of caught up. Load of noise, crash, bang, wallop, bang. Oh, right, I'm sure that will work. So I need my cutting pliers, and I need the string winder, and that's pretty much it. Here we go. I'm going to use the approach taught to me by Gavin Downey, which will be the two. God, I love this. I love this. Sorry, I love this block. This tremolo block. It's such good quality. Yeah, I'm going to do 2 winds. That's right. 1 above and 2 below. That's the new plan on these tuners. So it's through all the way, back about 1.5 inches. First one over the top of the what do you call it? Leftover. First bit over the top of the leftover string. Pull the string up. Second one underneath it. And a third one underneath it when it tightens up. Yay! It's a nice little technique of having the strings gripped under their own pressure. But yeah, it's really is a surprise to keep looking at this tremolo block and seeing just how strong it is and how big it is compared to normal Fender Squier guitars. So that's why there's a lot of interest in this guitar already, methinks. So over the top, 1, and then down. Get in. Boom. Yeah, lovely quality block. So that will this steel block in here, I have to say, will, you know, you'll have somebody who will look at this guitar and say, "Oh, plywood," they'll say, apart from the fact it's laminate. But they'll say plywood and be all critical about its sound characteristics, and they probably won't have anything to say or even notice the quality of the steel trem block, which makes all the difference. In fact, makes far more difference to the electric guitar sound than does the so-called tonal characteristics of the laminate that they'll decry. So nice and simple, all going well. The action is quite high looking at the moment. That's because the saddles I've put on are a different set, so it's sitting. The strings are sitting differently. Okay, under there, pull back, go around. Go under, over, this time under. I'm getting the hang of this. Okay, last 2 strings. Oh, that's not so good. Come on, G. What's happened to the G? Oh, Christ. It's gone underneath. Yeah. Do. Oh crap, I've done some... That's really annoying. I've made a mistake. Come back. Right, what I've done is this has come up through the body and not gone through the saddle. So, it's given me the chance to do it again. And that's partly why I leave a bit of extra length on these things in case such a thing happens and I've got to redo this again with a straight. I'm going to need to come back through this and I need a bit of a straight edge to do it. That's a real pain. Don't know how I missed that. Right, again. Okay, let's put that in again. Right, there we go. Round again. Over the top. Underneath. Thank you. Right, sort yourself out. Okay. Now for that hurt onto the B. Come on. Yes, it's surprising how many ways you can get it wrong when threading the strings at this end. And I just demonstrated a whole brand new one that I've never done before, which is missing the saddle altogether, coming through the hole, but just completely bypassing the saddle so it came up the side. Stupid. This one needs tightening up. I want to go over the top with this one, and then as it comes round, go under with this one. Okay, almost there. Can't get the temperature right in this shed, you know. 1 minute it's too hot, next minute it's too cold. I know, it's probably because the temperature goes up, then I switch the heater off, and then temperature goes down again. It's not rocket science, is it? If you've got your string trees, by the way, make sure that they're in line, properly in line with the path of the strings, because if you get them lopsided, they can be quite, they can trap the strings. I cannot believe that judge said that about the person with the name Patel. That's just absolutely shocking. She can't be doing anything important. She can only be working in a corner shop or whatever he said. Just unbelievable. Gobsmacked. Whether the judge's words amounted to racism or not. I think let's have a think. Right. So here we have the strings on. Pressure on. Just going to leave that there for a second and get rid of these packages. So that's that part done. The we'll get a tuning out of the amp and bring the, even though the action's all wrong, we'll just get the tension of the strings up to roughly where it should be. So I'll use the amp for that, it's kind of convenient. Okay, that's going to now need to stretch, and we're going to do the Gavin method, which is to stretch the string as it sits there. There's a lot of stretch, and I think it's quite good, this sideways stretching. It doesn't put the string under pressure over the nut, but it just takes out all the flex in the length of the string. Going to be more in the wound strings than there are in the plain strings, but shouldn't be too much. Okay. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to now take off the excess stringage on here. There's no need for it anymore. It was handy for when I needed to rethread it, and that's really the only reason I keep them long for a little while, in case I make a screw up, just like that. And then I've got a bit of clear string that I can go back up through the block if I need to. It's really hard if you've already coiled it round. It's very, very hard to get that same string with its coils in it back through, so leaving an extra bit gives you a bit of a get out clause when you do something stupid like I just did and miss out the bridge saddle altogether. So using Gavin's sideways stretching using thumb and finger, I'm just going to take all of the stretch I can out of these strings, and then just tune it up once more, and then we'll move on to setting the action, which will be the next bit. I quite expect this camera to run out of memory any minute now, so if we do, that's where we'll be going next. Gavin says he does this because he's a tech for bands. And he needs to get a number of guitars ready quickly. Rightio, we are running. Hey, okay. So, coming back to you with this lovely thing. All the strings are the wrong heights at the moment because I haven't done the action. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the thing to set the thing, which won't help me. So I'm going to just start by eyeballing it, and I'm going to take down this action. Got a bit of action in the tremolo there. Let's have a look what we've got. Now actually, maybe I'm wondering whether we can actually get the action down where I want it. So I'm going to crank these in for a minute. I'm going to do this, I'm going to set this up without tremolo. And the reason is it didn't come with a tremolo, partly. And also, I prefer this guitar stable. Personally, like, that's flat on the deck, so it's a hardtail now. And I'm also now looking at to see how low I can get this action setting this hardtail. It's just about right. So I'm going to work the rest of these strings off this first one, and the first one is really low down, which is, you know, it kind of makes me think in some ways you might ideally be wanting a see what, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here, if you can see. I'm doing it by eye. I get as much light onto this as I can for my purposes. Yeah, so I'm doing this by eye, setting it low, and then sort of following the radius of the guitar neck as I go. But it's very, very low, and it leaves these posts standing really high up. And the only way around that is to effectively put a shim under the neck and bring the whole neck. And I'm also just levelling out these saddles, because they don't half move. Don't ever think you shouldn't move these, because you should. They sort of stick in certain places, and you might want to push them to where you want them, because they won't go under their own free will. Yeah, so the question is, do I put a shim under this neck, or do I just leave these? There's nothing wrong with these grub screws sticking up. They just, personally for me, I find them a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you like palm muting a lot. But to be honest, I don't like shims on. Certainly, I don't like putting my own shims under, because for me, a shim breaks up the strength of or the firmness of the contact between the neck and the neck pocket, and to me, that solidity of that join, or the firmness of that join, is what it is where the vibration, or the stability you need for the vibration of your strings to vibrate properly. So I don't really want to break that up by putting breaking it up by putting a shim under there. Okay, so just now I've taken all of these strings right down, and I can see they're similar, close to the right height, but not perfectly right. And we'll fine tune this again a bit more in a minute. But right now, all I'm really concerned about is getting them down to a start point, which looks like it's following the shape of the neck profile, which is about right. It's sort of happening. I'm just going to tilt this down. That looks about right. Now, whether or not it is right, I can also get a bit of extra information by looking across the strings here, and that very quickly tell me which ones are way higher than the others. And in this case, it's telling me that the B string at the moment is too high. And I'm just judging by the distance between these things. It's just a visual setting, really. obviously I've lost the tuning now, so I need to get another note. Oh man! Ooh, hey, you know what? Starting to play very, very easily. God. That is very, very low and very easy to play. I'm going to check the nut action on this, but it should be close. Oops, should be close. That is a really, really, really nice guitar to play already, and that's without too much messing about. But we've hardtailed it, which makes it easier. It's already quite low up here. I'm just going to double check now the nut action. And if you look down here, what you'll see is I'm looking for usually about 0.3 of a millimetre. At this end for the right sort of action, for a nice low playing guitar, and typically I'm at the imperial end, so here's 0.3, and let's have a look. Still could go down a tiny bit. Now to be an utter and complete, not pedant isn't the word, complete perfectionist, that's the word, I am going to take it down and I'm going to get it exactly right, because this, where did I put my glasses? This guitar is going to be about getting it perfectly right. So, not a lot, but tiny bit. Enough to be worth doing. Sometimes I go down to 0.25, and that's perfectly doable as well. But I'll stick to 0.3 here. It's sort of a little safety margin, really. And this will be really quick because I think mostly it's there. But So what I do to get this right is I'll just slack off this tuner, which I don't like the way this tuner is working, by the way. It's a bit sticky. Pick the file I need, get everything else out of the way, and basically I'm just going to cut into this slot just enough to get us down to what we want, and tune back up roughly to pitch. You don't have to get it exactly to pitch, you just need to be up to its normal tension. Almost there. It's a fraction, really. I'm just being pedantic. That'll do. So it's very, very simple. I'll just drop this one off the side so I can get access to the other one and just check it. Again, still a tiny bit higher than I would like it, so I'm just going to drop this one down as well. So just a process of getting these where you want them. Close. It's hardly any work to do on this. But very, very close to being right. So the beauty of this is when you get this right, not only does the guitar much easier to play, but it also does away with some of the intonation problems you get down here, and that's good, that'll do me. The issue about this is when you have the action down here set any higher than it ideally optimally should be, what happens is you have to then press harder to make the strings press down to the first fret, and when you have to press harder to get the strings onto the first fret, it's very close, you end up pressing them sharp, and what happens is that your chords then become very subtly out of tune. No matter how well you tune the guitar, that's fine. You are unable to get the chords or single notes played down there to sound like they're in tune, and it's really infuriating. And if you don't know what the problem is, which most people don't when it happens to them, you tend to think it's something to do with what you're doing, when in fact it's the guitar itself. And the tolerances, or the amounts of the distance we're talking around here about this is tiny. So we're talking about I'll tell you now. The distances are tiny. I set these for 0.3 of a millimetre, and if it's 0.5 instead of 0.3, that's a fifth of a millimetre difference. You can start having intonation problems. It's that small a tolerance. Often you find on a typical budget guitar that it will be set at about 0.7 or even sometimes a millimetre here, and that is practically unplayable. Certainly from a beginner's point of view, the intonation is all over the place, and it's not only playing that makes your chords and your notes played there sound awful, but it also feels almost impossible to play, and it feels like the guitar's fighting you. So that's what we're about here, is taking down that action, getting it down to 0.3, the right height, and then the guitar becomes playable, really easy to play, and the intonation remains accurate. It doesn't feel like it's out of tune. And this, I discovered this when I bought a £300 something or £300 Taylor, baby Taylor acoustic guitar, and you know, it's not a cheap guitar, and I loved the sound of it and saw it in the shop and fell in love with it and bought it, took it home, and wondered why over the next couple of years I just couldn't live with it. What I meant by that is I couldn't get it seemingly in tune. No matter what I did, get it perfectly tuned to pitch, and then go and play some chords, and it just sounded wrong. And so I'd go back and tune it again. Think, well, it's right, it's in tune. And then I'd play a chord and it would sound horrible, and then I would try and tune it to get the chord sounding right, which is a sort of pointless exercise, because you're trying to sort of bend everything to make it fit the situation you think it how it should be, and of course you never get it right, because if you tune it to place the chord right, then it doesn't it's not right, it's not in tune when the string's open or unfretted. So it's a massively frustrating thing, and I got to a point where I was ready to chuck the guitar away. Actually, in truth, I would have sold it and had kind of cut my losses, but I would have had to have sold it at a loss, because it was hardly used, and yet I couldn't get on with it. And that was a real shame. So I traipsed everywhere to try and find out an answer to the thing, and nobody could tell me. There was all manner of weird and silly suggestions, none of them that made any sense, right the way through to using dehumidifiers, putting the guitar in certain places until such and such happened, and you know, just gave up. There's no information, but it was clear that quite a lot of people suffered from the same thing. So, hello Morris. Here comes Morris. Little paw comes through the door. Hello. Yeah, so the thing that made the difference was that, so close. The thing that made a difference was I noticed that the only way I could play the guitar and enjoy it was with a capo on. And Morris, this is your seat down here, okay? Next to the nice warm fire. Right, you go and sit on there. Go on, mister. There you go. Look, it's nice and warm. Look, nice and warm. See? Ah, lovely and warm. You like that? Yeah. when I put the capo on, I noticed that the guitar seemed to play really well, and it seemed to immediately cure this out of tune sort of feeling. Morris, come on, you've got to go down here where it's warm. That's for you. Yeah, so putting the capo on, that's fine. Putting the capo on cured the problem. And I had to just kind of get my head around that logically. So what was it about capoing it there that made this guitar play brilliantly, and yet if I took the capo off, these notes were always out of tune no matter what I did? And of course, it's obviously that when you put the capo on, Morris, listen, I know you want to be up here while we're doing this, but you have to go down, right? Because everybody loves seeing you, okay? Because you are Mr. Fluffball, and I like to see you too, and I like to rub sticky noses with you, but I need to put you down here by the nice warm radiator, okay? There, now we've had our little bit of commune time, you just relax. Yeah, so what I realised was when you capo the first fret, what happens is this becomes your nut, and the distances, I noticed the distances between of the string over this new first fret were tiny, and yet it played perfectly. So what I realised was it had to be that the distance of the string over this first fret when I took the capo off was what was the problem, and of course that was dictated or set by the height of the slots on the nut. So I realised that was the problem. So what I did, oh Morris, please my boy, come on, I literally don't need you up there just now. So what I did was I went and did some experiments by setting the height, setting the nut slots. Persistent, Morris, aren't you? Setting the nut slots till they mimicked or the same height as the slot, gave the same height of string over the first fret as the capo did. Morris, stop it. Morris, shh. Whoa, beautiful. That is just perfect. And I keep on doing it again and again. Now, Morris, you've got to get down now. All right, mister? Down there. I have to do the intonation now, the last stage in this process. Okay, so, yeah, I discovered that was how to do it, and I've been doing it that way ever since, and I get consistently, tends to be at about height of about, an action on the first fret of about 0.3 of a millimetre, and occasionally, if I'm feeling adventurous, or for the hell of it, occasionally 0.25, which is also quite possible, and sometimes creates a really nice low action. Put that here. Let's put our tuner back on. Yeah, so having done it loads of times, it really does pan out that way. It works really well. Never had a problem with it. If you go too far, if you're learning how to do it and you haven't got the knack and you go too far, that's fine. You can either replace the nut with another one, but they're not too expensive. It's worth, you know, if you want to practice, it's worth making mistakes. So you can either replace it, or if you really need to, you can kind of do a temporary fix with super glue and baking powder, and it really does work. Okay, so just a quick thing here. We're going to do setting the intonation, and we need a clean sound, not much gain. I'm going to try and use the Strobo Soft tuner, which I spent so much on a couple of years ago, and I up to a point really liked. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to set the intonation of this. God, it's such a bloody good guitar. Oh my god! I'm going to have to sell it. I've already kind of promised people I'm selling it. We've got a playing action here of 1.5 millimeters exactly. All right. So the playing action is set. We set the nut action as well, so it's all. Oh my God. You can play this guitar without even thinking about the chords. There's no effort required whatsoever. It's just beautiful. Now we're going to set the intonation as the final bit, and the intonation, all it means here is we're going to set the string length correctly for this neck. Why do we do that? Why does it have to do that at all? Well, first of all, you could make a neck any length you wanted, right? There's no reason why it's that length, or it could be that length. If it's longer, then the frets come together at a different rate. If it's shorter, they come together quicker. But whichever way, whatever length you make your neck, the neck is always made for a notional or an ideal scale length, which is the length of string that suits the neck and the rate at which these frets come close together. Now, for manufacturing's sake, over the years, certain standards have arisen, and partly that's so that people can manufacture necks which fit certain kinds of style of guitar, and then obviously everyone's playing on the same playing field. And so it's quite easy, if you buy a Fender style neck with a certain scale length, then you can put it on a guitar and be absolutely certain where you need to put the bridge. And that's fine. It is mathematical up to that point, and it just means that when you use this scale, a neck built for a certain scale length, and you put it on a guitar, and you create the scale length that this neck's built for by setting the bridge in a certain position, then you will have these frets will make notes at a dependable and correct interval for Western music, the kind of intervals we know, which are tones and semitones. And if it was as simple as that, then you would plonk this neck on, you would measure a distance along and put your bridge down, which you kind of do, and you know it's in the right place. But the saddles here allow you to do two things. It allows you to fine-tune if you haven't put your bridge exactly millimetre perfect, but more importantly, each of these strings needs to be, strangely, a slightly different length to fit this neck, and that's because of the thickness of the strings and the way that they're difference in the way they're manufactured, or the construction of the string. So they all need, each string needs a slightly different length, and that's what we do as final step now, which is to use these saddles to move backwards and forwards to set the exact length for each string. Now the question here is, how do we find out whether this string is the right length for this guitar? Well, there's an easy trick, luckily. If we ping a harmonic on the 12th fret and tune it to the note we want, get it as close as we can. Then if the string is currently the exact correct length to this neck, when we fret it on the 12th fret, it should be exactly the same note according to our tuner as the pinged harmonic. I've got some reverb here I don't want, and some effects. So you can see from this, it's a little bit sharp most of the time. Now when you do this intonation, you're going to need to first of all do it standing up like this, with the guitar in its normal playing position, so the neck isn't suffering from gravity, certainly not pulling backwards because it makes a difference to the intonation. You also have to do it a few times because you will get different readings. Sometimes it will completely contradict what you've just got, but go on an average. Now that to me said it was slightly sharp, which means the string length is too short, and to lengthen the string we need to tighten or turn this screw clockwise, and that will drag the saddle back, but it will also probably make this note go sharp. So we have to retune again to an E on the 12th. I'm going to stop there, that feels about alright. I'm going to do the second one. That's sharp. And again I'm going to screw this in, and I know that on the way these are set this needs to be stepped backwards slightly from the first one, and equally the third string, the G string, needs to be stepped a little bit back further than that, and it's I'll show you here, it's a little stepped process. They kind of go 1, 2 and 3, so they'll change the tuning. We need to now tune. Very variable depending on how hard you squeeze the press the fret down. Just reminds me I didn't put graphite on the top 3. When you do this, you have to work hard to isolate just one note at a time and confuse the tuner. Slightly sharp. Again, we'll pull it back a little bit. Slightly sharp. The pattern would be that you'd expect this string to be a little bit further back, starting from a little bit further back than your top E. That's okay. Sharp, pull it back. levels out there. Not happy with this tuning peg, unfortunately. Everything will be out of tune again, so we'll just give it one more tug or two and then go back. Folks, that's about right for now. It's kind of the what do we call it? The position of these bridge saddles are very, very close together. The intonation is very, very slight. Ladies and gentlemen, oh sorry, oh, I can't remember what I'm doing here. Ladies and gentlemen, all that time we've taken, get rid of those glasses, put on something better. Okay, we are at that stage, I'm happy to tell you, where this guitar is intonated. Guitar is intonated, it has got the most incredibly low action. It's done. I'm just going to put the top back on, or the back on, and all I might do is at some point touch up those couple of tiny little chips to the bodywork. But this, folks, is done. It's a Squier Stratocaster Korean thing made in laminate, beautifully heavy, beautifully set up now. Just incredible playing action. I'm very proud of this, and lovely kind of aged yellow looking hardware, which is the way it should be for a guitar of this age, some 20 something years old. Quite amazingly, it has got the most incredible strong steel block, unlike many of the guitars, unlike many of the guitars in the modern Fender Squier range. This is the block in here is really weighty, and it's got quite some substance, which will contribute hugely to the overall quality of sound just through the resonance. So you know, you may not agree with me regarding the tonewood argument, but I don't think there is anything to it. I think what you've got here is a guitar that has got the solidity, first of all, got the action, which is absolutely unbelievably good, got a lovely neck for playing, and on top of that, then you've got a block, a steel block in here, which adds stability to the strings and gives the whole of the resonance, increases the resonance of the strings way beyond that you would get with any other any of the affinities or the bullets or even the no-named strats that you can get today. So this is all round a better guitar. Tonality in terms of the pickups, well, you know, that's always a matter for people to discuss, but as a starting point, you've certainly got something. You can begin here, and you know, there's no reason why you wouldn't have this guitar as an absolutely great platform for perhaps going even a bit further in future and putting some really quality pickups into, way beyond what's in here already. But that is a guitar I am hugely proud of, and whoever gets this, I've already quoted a price of around 150 quid, but I think that's an absolute steal for the work and the setup on this, because it's just a beauty to play. So there's a look of somebody who's proud of what they've done. Always am, but this is lovely. I wish I could keep this myself. Out of tune, but when it's back in tune, it'll be perfect. Never goes off when you want it to.